Hey, it's your friend Brad, and welcome to Pain to Performance. So, imagine you're 25 years old. You just earned your master's degree. You're standing in a classroom doing exactly what you were put on this earth to do. And then, in a single moment, a student takes that from you. Not your passion, not your talent, your body. Your ability to stand in that room and do the thing that you love most. Today's guest rebuilt everything from that moment. And what she built didn't just replace what she lost, it surpassed it. Her name is Sarah Alepin. And this is one of the most important conversations I've had on this show to date. Let's get into it. Sarah, welcome to Pain to Performance. I have to be honest with you. Ever since I had you on Business Insider Roundtable, I've not been able to stop thinking about your story. It's not so much the networking story that we had on that conversation, but the story that was underneath it. And I'm just so grateful you're willing to go there with me today.
I loved that conversation. That was so much fun. Your questions were so intriguing and interesting, and it really we went to places we don't normally go to on business podcasts.
It's true, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people forget that there is a human side to business. Everybody sees
Mhm.
numbers, spreadsheets, and all these different things, but nobody ever talks about what got us there, you know? And I think that's what this conversation today is really going to do for us. And I'm so excited to be able to make it happen. So on that podcast, though, on Business Roundtable, we talked about District Bliss specifically, which was about your networking company, about how you built a community that other people needed. But we barely scratched the surface of how you got there. So I want to rewind all the way back. You got your MFA in photography, you were teaching, you absolutely loved it. Can you take me back to that version of Sarah? Who was she before everything changed?
So, I loved teaching so much. It's yeah, it was just the best job in the world. I had the best students. I was teaching darkroom photography and digital photography, and I was teaching levels 1 through 3 in both plus
Wow.
AP. So all of my classes were mixed level classes. So I was teaching to like multiple different levels in each of my classes, which presented its own type of challenge. But I had literally the best students.
Mhm.
They were so helpful to one another. They helped everyone rise to a better level, a higher level. No one was like judgmental or nasty or like brought their ego in about it. Everyone was there to help and support one another. So it was almost like I had this group of people who were teaching the lower levels alongside when I wasn't able to be everywhere all the time,
Mm.
all at once. I loved it. I was, like, super active in all of the various activities at the school. I was always down to, like, meet other teachers for happy hour. I still am in touch with most like, a lot of my former students. I photographed their weddings, I photographed their maternity sessions and
That is so
their
great.
newborns.
That's so cool. So you're seeing it full circle here, and I think that's the one thing that teachers probably love the most out of anything, is not only the fact that you got to teach them, but you also got to watch them grow up.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what an amazing feeling.
It is, it's the best. I mean, and yeah, I mean, I just had dinner the other night with one of my former students who's now a psychiatrist. Um, it's just, like, super cool to see what these incredible humans turn into as they grow up, and I just loved every single day of it, even
That's
though it
so
was
great.
exhausting, we have to be honest. It
Of
was
course,
exhausting.
teaching, honestly, I will say it, and any of those teachers out there, you have my mad respect because I genuinely number 1, teaching is underpaid in my opinion, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2, it's underappreciated, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'll tell you this right now, my teachers, I love them. I have friends that are teachers. I try to do everything I can for them with the very little amount of income that I have, and they do major things with the minimal amount of income they have as well for their students. So it's kind of incredible what teachers do, and I just want to say thank you teachers out there listening. So, I I do wanna kinda pull out a little bit from this, though, and understand what did teaching mean to you? So not necessarily the job, but the feeling that you got while you were working with these students, while you were in the dark room, while you were teaching the digital photography pieces.
It was so fulfilling because you're taking kids who are naturally a little bit timid, a little bit, afraid to, let's say like, imagine being in high school and having to be critiqued by the class,
Sure. That's hard.
on your artwork.
You're already
Yeah,
scared enough
and
as a student. You know what I mean? Just going to high school is rough. So, yeah.
exactly, exactly. And then taking those kids and making them feel confident and proud to stand up even when their work wasn't up to their standard.
Mm.
So the ability to really help shine a spotlight on every single kid, and help have that create a safe space too. Like that was one of the most fulfilling things for me is that today when I do see my former students, they always thank me for having a safe space where they could show up as they were that day, where they could come to me and talk to me about what was going on with their respective partners, or their crushes or whatever.
Mhm.
And I wasn't there to judge. I was there to just listen and let them just be who they are. But on the teaching side too, like it's just all of it is so fulfilling. It there is something innate in teachers that makes I mean, because it is such an overworked, underpaid job, there is a reason that we love it, that we talk about it like this, where it, like, lights you up inside because it is so fulfilling to allow a person to grow and help them grow and stand alongside them and guide them as they do, emotionally and in the education part
I mean,
as well.
there's such a big piece to people's lives, teachers, and I look back on a lot of things for me, and there's a lot of teachers out there. There's one specifically, his name is Mr. Pierce, Mark Pierce. That man was integral to my growing up, along with my band director, Robin Christian. So if you guys are listening to this, I still think about you guys consistently. But when you pictured that version of yourself, right, being a teacher, the one who had the career planned out, had it all figured out, what did you think your life was actually going to look like?
I thought it was gonna be that. I mean, I did think at some point I would end up in the professor like, I would end up moving to being a professor,
Okay.
um, but I didn't have any plans to do that anytime in the near future.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons that I did work on my MFA because I wanted to be able to move into the college level at some point.
Got it.
Um, but and I did actually teach college courses at night as well.
Okay.
Teachers do so many things.
They do. They really do. I know a teacher that was a real estate agent, also owned a business and was teaching. I was like, man. But also, that just goes to show you the teachers that are doing that, they're also proving to their students that if you work hard enough, you can get somewhere in life. And it seems
That's
like
true.
you've done that. So, right now, I think we all can agree that we have that teacher in our lives that made such a big piece of who we are as an individual. And we better have high respect for teachers, right? And we've all been at the point where we kind of expected our lives to look a certain way, but something completely changes it. So that moment where you knew where your life was supposed to go, and then things kind of transitioned. Can you kind of tell me about that a little bit? I don't want to jump into the story just yet, but can you maybe give me a walk up as to what that day looked like before this assault happened?
So, it was a pretty normal day. I think it was in during 5th period, so it would have been right after lunch, which means I would have driven 45 minutes from DC into Montgomery County, Maryland.
Wow. Okay.
At, like, 5:20 in the morning was when I left the house.
Goodness gracious, Sarah.
Uh
Okay.
it would have been if podcasts were a thing at the time, it would have been the best time to listen to a podcast. It really would have been, but
I love it. Okay.
so I would drive in every morning and then I had coffee with my department head every morning while I opened the dark room. So we would sit in these like big old wingback chairs that somebody had gotten at like a flea market prior to my taking over my office. And she would come down, she would make coffee as I was opening the dark room, and then we would sit there and we would talk about what we were going to be doing for the day. And typically around like 10 minutes before the bell would ring for kids to start moving toward class, we would start having students knock on the door who'd be like, "Hey, can I help with anything? Can I, do you need help making the developer? Do you need help like, setting up the class for the day and whatever." So I'd be fielding knocks between on the door
Mm.
between having coffee with Susan. And then from there we would roll into the first period of the day. And that we had our first periods were, well, it depends on which day it was, but I think this was just an hour-long class. So that means they get, like, 5 minutes of instruction or 10 minutes of instruction, and then they launch into work because in order to get through the darkroom process or really get into editing, it takes a bit, so you need to have that, like, lead up time. So that happens 3, 4 times, and then, we went into lunch. We had a 45-minute lunch at my school. I actually loved this, but a lot of teachers did complain about this for different reasons, but for me, it was so awesome. So the 45-minute lunch was an open lunch, and every kid ate at the same time, and they could eat wherever they wanted.
Okay.
So, you can see where some teachers would hate
I
this
could.
because, like,
Sure.
yeah.
I get it.
But for me, they could work during that lunch. So if they had anything they didn't get through during like, they didn't get their film developed because it took them too long to use, in the black bag to get it into the tank, then for me, like, they could use that period. That is like an additional period, like a free period. So, I loved it, and, my classroom was full to the brim every day, both classrooms, because I had the one that was the dark room and the one that was the digital classroom, and
Uh-huh.
my office was between. So, I would eat in my office, and then I would have them coming and asking me questions like, "I'm not sure if I should do 2.3 or 2.4 for my exposure time," um, and, like, bring me test strips and stuff to look
Sure.
at.
I love it.
So just lots of like busy activity, lots of interaction, lots of hands-on, lots of momentum is how I would describe that classroom every day. That day was no different. So, and then from there, my break, my planning period was period 5,
Mhm.
which was the period after lunch that day. So that would be the period where that incident happened.
Got it. So you basically woke up, you drive the 45 minutes to school. By the way, go you. DC traffic is no joke. I lived in Salisbury, Maryland for a minute. I drove all the way up
Ooh.
to Millsboro, Delaware, right,
Oh,
for an
geez.
internship back in college. So not that I'm saying I went through DC, but I'll tell you I had to go through DC to get to Maryland, and I'll tell you this, I did not make that drive often. So it's massively commendable what you were doing, and it just shows how much you loved what you did. So it seemed like everything was just a very normal day for you. It seems that you were running around helping students, you're being that super teacher that everybody loves. Now, I want to go to the moment that just kind of changed everything, though. And I know this involves something really difficult. So I'm just going to give you the floor. What happened?
Okay. I'm going to put out an assault trigger warning here. If that feels like something you can't handle today, please feel free to skip ahead and join us in a couple minutes here. Um, So I had 3 students who had not finished their projects during the lunch period. So they'd asked to stay and made them go get passes, and they had just gotten back into the classroom when we heard some sort of massive commotion in the hallway. I looked outside. There were 2 kids who were in a fight in the hall, and one kid who was standing there kind of like egging them on, which
Hmm.
sort of seems very high school, but, like, it was not. It was, like, very violent.
Hmm.
So, I pushed the call button, and I don't think I had ever had to use the call button in my room, and it did not connect. So then 2 teachers across the hall from me were notorious for calling security, and we did have security in the school. We had, like, 7 security guards, I think, and 1 EFO, educational facilities officer, so policeman. Um, so the 2 teachers, unfortunately, across the hall that were the only other ones on the hall during this period, both tried to call security and security didn't come. So I went out into the hall. They both had classes, and one of them was, had a classroom that had, um, a preschool inside it, as well as, like, she was teaching preschoolers, which is, of course, you can see why you might need to call security more in this
Absolutely. Yes.
situation, because you have preschool kids and high school kids in the same classroom, and you're teaching the high school kids to teach the preschool kids. It's called childhood development.
Sure.
So, I mean, you can understand why you might have more issues that would arise than in a normal classroom.
Absolutely.
And the other one had sort of just, like, lot of crazy situations that would come up through no fault of her own.
Sure.
Um, so, you know, it's just the way it is. Sometimes you gotta call security, but they didn't come. And so I went out into the hallway, and we are trained to verbally break up fights. We are not allowed to physically intervene. So I did not. Also, I was like 126 pounds, and they were 16-year-olds, 16-year-old boys. So they were quite a bit bigger than me. So I was saying like all the stuff you're trained to say, which as you're saying, it feels like the dumbest thing in the entire world because you're standing there saying like, think about the consequences of your action and it's actions and it's like
They're not. They're not. They're not thinking about that.
clearly not. And like
Mhm.
even afterward, I mean, I'll tell you this at the end, but like afterward, the one kid that had been getting that was getting beaten up, the one on the losing end, I guess, he said to me, "What do you mean I'm gonna get suspended?" And I was like,
Mm.
you were in a fight. You
Yeah.
participated in it. Like, of course you're going to be like, it didn't even so, no, the consequences did not enter their minds. Their frontal lobes aren't developed. Like, they're
Correct.
kids, you know?
Yeah.
So I was saying all of these things that I was like, "I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth. This is so stupid." They don't even really recognize that I'm standing there. And then finally, one of my AP kids that I had had since ninth grade, so she'd had me for 4 years. One of her friends came out of the bathroom who was, like, this huge wrestler, saw that I was involved in this and restrained the kid. Now, this is at the 7-minute mark that this happens. Like, this is
Wow.
how long this fight has gone on. And you could hear I don't think this kid actually had any, like, significant damage, but I really thought that the kid was gonna break through his sinuses. He had stretched out when the wrestler came out and restrained the kid that was getting beat up, unfortunately. But he was, who knows? He came out and he was like, "Oh god," and just tried. The kid that was hitting him pulled his shirt so far, stretched the collar so far that you could see his belly button when he did finally get pulled off of the kid.
Wow.
So, like, he stretched the neck of a normal T-shirt down past the kid's belly button so he could keep hitting him in the face. Um, so the kid that was egging them on kind of half-heartedly grabbed the aggressor, and we ended up getting them separate. At this point, they realize I'm there in my, like, ballet flats, my little black pencil skirt, and, like, a bright yellow top. It was like a bumblebee outfit, and I put my arms out because he turned on me. I saw him, like, whip and realize, like, she's here, she's next, and so I put my arms out and I was like, you know, "We need to stop this. This is not appropriate," like, all the other stupid things you're trying to say, but, like and I think you're even more sensitive to it when you're young, saying these things because, like, I didn't have kid I still don't have kids, but I didn't have kid like, I wasn't used to saying things, talking to
Sure.
children like
Talking
they
them
were
down
supposed.
kinda thing.
Yes,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. So, I had my arms out, but I must have subconsciously stepped forward with my right foot, which tends to be like a something that you do when you're taking control of the situation, you sort of step forward. And so I guess I did that, and he looked at me, realized he couldn't reach me with his arms, leaned back on the kid that was restraining him, and stomped on my foot with the full force of all of his weight, but everything that he could bring from momentum from leaning back on the kid behind him. So, right away, like, of course, the kid ended up leaving school. He had a knife in his bag. I didn't know that at the time.
Wow.
So he ended up just walking off property, and at this point, they kinda I think they tried to get him, but, like, once he's off property, like, you gotta let him go. There's nothing you can do. You lose all your power at that point. Um, as a school representative, meaning, like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
don't
No, it
have
makes sense.
authority outside of the property.
Exactly.
So he walked off, and then the other kid was still there, and, I was, like, trying to comfort him, make sure he was okay, whatever. So then the incident reports start happening, which means my admin has to come in and take my statement, find out what happened. The nurse has to come and assess me. We determined that I didn't need to go to the hospital because it wasn't something that, like, it didn't seem like there was anything that was, like, broken.
Hmm.
Um, and which is understandable, like, there wasn't blood, nothing seemed broken. It seemed like if I elevated it the rest of the day and iced it, I know icing has kind of fallen out of favor maybe, but at the time, this
Sure.
is, quite a
Mhm.
few years ago now,
Yeah.
um, then that was the theory, right? So I taught from my desk the rest of the day. The kids were all very upset about it. Like, my students still talk about this, that were, like,
Wow.
around the vicinity during that, because I think it was very like, to see the teacher that was their safe space not be safe, I think was really scary for them. Like,
Oh,
that was
man.
big
Yeah.
feelings.
That brings tears to my eyes because I completely get that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't realize the emotional impact that it would have on them for me to be injured, which was like a whole different can of managing other people's emotions
Sure.
as opposed to just mine. And so I went home, I went to the doctor, they x-rayed it. They said, "We don't see anything. We think it's bursitis."
Hmm.
You, I'm sure, are familiar with bursitis.
Yep. Everything kinda gets written off from that point. They're like, "Oh, it'll be
Yep.
fine. Here's some NSAIDs. It'll go away in a couple of weeks."
Exactly. Maybe wrap it if it feels like you need support,
Sure.
and here is one of those, like, small shoes that is really difficult to walk in,
Hmm.
and doesn't really do very much for that. But I had APs. This was May, so, like, I had my APs coming up, so I
Wow.
needed to be there. So I took 3 days off. Um, at that The doctor asked me, "Do you want me to write you out for the rest of the year?" And I said, "I can't be out for the rest of the year. I need to get these kids through APs." So I took 3 days. I was like, "Bursitis, people play football with bursitis. Like,
Mhm.
I will be fine." Of course, now we know a lot more, again, about football and what that
Of
does to your
course.
body in
Yeah.
different ways than we did at the time, but that was my justification. I was like, "Well, people play football with bursitis. Do I really need to be off it for that many days?" And he was like, "No, but, like, I would probably teach from your desk. Like, you have students you've trained to open the dark room, mix the chemicals, like, let them help you, whatever, like, very safety conscious, all the things." Not gonna go into all of that on this, but everything was safe, kids were protected, but we did have them step up and really help me a lot during this time so that I could get them through their APs, which they did very well. Every kid got a 4 and above on their
Oh,
APs.
that's great. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's a testament to you, Sarah. It really is. Like, that's amazing.
Thanks.
Congrats.
Thanks. Thanks. I was very proud of them. They worked really hard. And you can see why I had to go in, because I was like, they worked so hard all year.
Of course.
Now, in retrospect, like, I would have taken better care of myself had I known the
Of
eventual
course.
outcome here.
It's always
But
2020.
it is, especially with this kind of injury, and when you're kind of told like it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
Um, and so then you're like, okay, well, this person knows better than me, so I guess it isn't a big deal. Like, it'll feel
Yeah.
better. It'll be better. This will just be a distant memory of something that, like, happened that was really crappy, and I'll just keep pushing forward. So I just kept pushing forward through the pain, for the rest of the year. And then I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna have this looked at." I went to a different orthopedist, I went to, like, various different doctors over the summer to try to get a handle on it, and we did, like, injections and all kinds of other stuff, and I thought the 3 months off during the summer would get me there, but it did not. So I don't know how far you want me to go in this story, into, like, the next year because it goes on for it was a full year before I had surgery.
Sure. Let's talk about it. I mean, I think this is the biggest piece that a lot of people don't think about, especially after an assault, right? Everybody just knows that
Yeah.
an assault happens. They never really think about the aftermath and the things that come from it. So please continue forward.
Okay. We should, for the most part, be out of our trigger warning, but now we do have a PTSD trigger warning.
Okay, got it.
Um, so if that feels scary for you or uncomfortable or anything for you today, please feel free to skip forward. Um, so I realized I wasn't sleeping. I was sleeping like 2 hours a night. And so then I was like, something is wrong. I've never had problems sleeping, like ever. Um, Unless it was, like, something was really seriously going on, but even then, it was like I'd wake up at 3 and then I'd worry about it for an hour, and then I'd fall back to sleep. This was like I would sleep 2 hours a night, and then I couldn't sleep, and then I would sleep, like, 12 hours, on day 5.
Wow.
So, I was having, like, very disordered sleep. I also had a hair trigger that rose its ugly head, and this is my personality, like, you can tell my personality from this show. I am a very positive person, it takes forever to irritate me, I'm really easygoing, I'm very flexible, I mean, Bradley, we've had limited interactions, and you know all of this about me.
Easily. Yes. I agree with everything you're saying right now. Yes.
And I would go from a slight inconvenience or slight misstep on someone else's part to being a 10 out of 10 angry
Wow.
in, like, the drop of a dime, which is a huge departure from my personality. So now we've got these 2 things and I'm like, "What is happening?" And I had never experienced, I have I'm a type B person. As much as I'm organized, I'm a type B person for the most part. I'm not a person who is run or I wasn't a person who was run by anxiety by any means. Like, I
Mhm.
hate being late, that makes me anxious,
Sure.
but typically, like, I have no issues going into, like, I just I'm not a person historically who is run by anxiety. I had crushing anxiety in crowded spaces
Hmm.
because I was afraid I was gonna get stepped on, and I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know if something was gonna break out around me. I didn't know like, I couldn't handle any sort of conflict that felt like when voices started getting raised and this is actually probably one of the remainder things. I am in remission, but this is probably one of the remainder pieces that will still start to trigger me is when I hear, like, raised booming voices, I will start to, like, immediately, like, arm myself mentally and
Hmm.
physically, like, like, your body just, like, wakes up into it,
Sure.
um, like, preparing for this to be a situation where I need to get out of
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
So I started trying to seek and of course, all of this was workers' comp, so what I say, trying to seek
Mhm.
medical
Yep.
assistance with what I was starting to see was probably PTSD. Then it was an uphill battle because they were like, "Well, we need to find like, you need to be evaluated by, like, this person first and this person first." And meanwhile, like, I had found a doctor that was actually supportive and was trying to be really helpful, and he was referring me and saying, like, "She needs to be seen." So finally, I did it out of pocket and submitted to them because by, like, January, I was, like, waking up with, like, horrible, brutal nightmares, like, brutal, brutal nightmares. Um, I it was awful, and I was a different person in the classroom. I was no longer that person who found joy in helping children. I was that person who was, like, on edge all the time and who was quick to anger, which is
Mhm.
a huge departure. I mean, imagine being like a kid who found a safe space in my classroom for 4 years and then all of a sudden, like, one day out of the week, I'm at, like, just a different teacher. you don't know who you're getting in that classroom, and
Yeah.
I have asked them, they said that that was not their experience.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sure
good.
there are kids I didn't ask that did have this
Sure.
experience, but that was my experience from living inside, and maybe it wasn't as evident to the outside, but it was very evident on the inside. So, I went and started cognitive behavioral therapy. For those of you who don't know, cognitive behavioral therapy is basically like, exposure therapy. So you do like it's like microdosing the things that trigger you. Um, and so I would like have an assignment to ride the metro on a day when it wasn't like particularly busy, or go to a restaurant down in like downtown DC where all of the office buildings are and like the government and all that kind of stuff, during lunch and stand in the line. Like, lines really stress me out because they felt like you can't they feel like you can't get out of them.
Sure.
So lines were very triggering for me. So I did all of these things. I went to CBT 3 days a week. I had the best therapist. I did that for I mean, I was in cognitive behavioral therapy. I think we call it I call it graduating out of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I graduated out of it in the year after the pandemic, so 2021.
Okay. So did
So,
you get to make that self-determination, or was your therapist like, "Listen,
yes,
dude, like, you're good." So you
she
did make
did
the
say
self.
that.
Okay.
She said
Great.
that. She's like, "Listen, like, I will see you as long as you wanna see me, but you're in remission. I don't think you need me anymore." And I
What a
was
great
like,
feeling.
"Yeah, that's why I call it graduating."
I love it. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd love to be able to graduate from therapy myself, right? I mean, I think that's most of our goals here, you know? So
Yeah,
I love the fact that you were able to, number 1, spot in yourself that something was off. I think that is not to quote AA or anything of that sort, but the first step to understanding we have a problem is being able to identify it. And
yeah.
so you were able to identify that pretty quickly, it sounds like. So you realized not only was it creating or wreaking havoc in your own personal life, you weren't able to sleep, you were quick to anger, you felt like it changed you as a person. Now,
Mhm.
you also were able to see it from the other person's perspective. And that is a rare thing to be able to do, Sarah. I really wanna make sure that you understand that, like, that's genuinely a gift for you to have the ability to understand how other people are feeling. There was a therapist that I spoke to, and there's a lot of people that skip from empathy over into understanding way too quickly. And you were able to walk yourself through that. So that tells me that you were still your regular self in your head, but something was just off. So you decided, okay, behavioral therapy is exactly where I need to go. You went through it, and then you ultimately ended up graduating out of it. So now we've kind of dealt with some of the emotional and psychological hurt from this. Can you maybe talk to me a little bit more about the physical hurt on this? Was this also the same exact kind of timeline? Did you realize, oh, mind body connection, or was it more of like, wait a minute, there's too much going on up here in my head that I can't even really start to pay attention to my body? Or was it more of everything kind of running in tandem at that point?
They were sort of running parallel. Like,
Okay.
I had to sort of compartmentalize them, I think, because it was just a lot to handle at one time.
Mhm.
So, they were running at the same time, I was handling them at the same time, but I was running into a lot more walls. I ran into different walls at different pieces of this, if we're looking at it honestly. Like, I couldn't get into
Sure.
therapy initially, but then I also couldn't get the diagnosis that was gonna actually help me. So, I ended up, I went to probably 5 different orthopedists. Finally, I went to an orthopedic surgeon, the head of orthopedic surgery at Georgetown,
Okay.
and he said, "Okay, you have peripheral neuropathy. The nerve was crushed into" I don't know what the big joint bone is that's on the top of your foot, but that's it got crushed into that.
The talus
Um,
bone, I believe.
that sounds right. I feel like you would know, I trust you. And it died up to my knee. So he said, "I wanna do a full release, from your knee, from the top of your foot, and you have developed tarsal tunnel because you didn't know your foot was dropping on the outside." So when I was taking a step, it
Mm,
was, like, dropping on an angle. So tarsal tunnel, for those of you who don't know, is like, carpal tunnel, but it's in your ankle. So carpal tunnel people, like, are more familiar with, I think. Most people,
they
if
don't
you
think
work at a
about it.
desk, you're familiar with.
Mhm.
But all of this basically means, like, the tunnels where your nerves are passing through the muscle are tightening on it, and you are losing sensation. So my surgeon wanted to open up all of those tunnels so the nerve had more space to recover and rebuild sensation, including then in the tarsal tunnel area. I had to do a ton of physical therapy surrounding this too, like a ton of physical therapy.
Mhm.
Because, if you don't have feeling, you have to have strength,
Exactly.
or you don't have stability. And
Exactly.
like, I'm not in my 20s giving up my freedom to move lightly. Like, I'm
Mhm.
going to do everything in my power. Adding the number of hours that this all take, like, if you're, like, clocking this, I'm like, "How did I have time for any of this while I wasn't sleeping?" Good
Sure.
God.
I'm telling you, the body's an amazing thing, Sarah, and, like, you've already you've gone through this and witnessed it, and I see it day in and day out with the patients I see in my office, and, eh, they're the stories that I get told, I'm like, "How were you able to survive, like, this long?" You know? So,
Yeah.
the body's just amazing. It really is. Anatomy is just incredible. I can talk about that forever, but I really could, genuinely, I really could. The human body is incredible. But for someone who has never experienced a nerve injury specifically, can you describe what that actually feels like on a day to day?
My experience could be different from other people's. There are very many types of nerve injuries. My specific nerve injury presents as numbness in my foot. So I still have skin nerves. So skin nerves are different than like deep nerves. And so I have a sensation, but it's very limited. So I have to really maintain a lot of balance. It presents as plantar fasciitis when it acts up. So,
Okay.
plantar fasciitis is like, runners get it commonly. I mean, a lot of people get it, but it presents as like your arch having like an intense pain in it, where every time you take a step, it's like it just makes you feel like it makes you salivate, because you have so much pain, like, you start to, like, it's the pre-vomit salivating.
Oh,
Not to be
I
too
know that
graphic,
well.
but
Nope, I get
yeah.
it. I get it.
You asked, I answered.
I love it.
And it, like, cramps in your calf too, in the back of my calf too, which is, like, connected to the plantar's fascia, issue. So these 2 pieces cramp, and then there's numbness. So there's just pain and numbness, and the combination is very confusing for the brain at best and incredibly uncomfortable. I mean, it's pain, like, it's painful. I broke my pinky toe pretty early on in this journey because I hit the radiator, I cut it too close. I had to become
Oh
very
my
aware of
gosh.
my coordination.
Okay.
Um, I
So,
had to, like, switch out all the kinds of shoes I can wear. Everything has to have arch support and heel support. Um,
I mean,
yeah, it's
a nerve injury really does change your life and how it is you
it
work
does.
through it. And again, I see it day in and day out at my office. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that people end up kind of being discounted for their pain because it's not visible.
Ye
And there's a lot of people that have come to see me as a massage therapist, and they're like, "You're probably not gonna believe me. Nobody else has." I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. We stop with that right here immediately. Like, whatever it is that you're telling me, I'm going to believe you, and we're gonna talk about this." And I'm so happy that you brought up with the plantar fascia or the plantar fasciitis that the gastrocs or the calves are actually part of the problem, because everybody assumes, "Oh, it's the sole of my foot." I'm like, "Actually, it's not. Your gastrocs or your calves come down into what we call the calcaneus bone, and then that's a tendon that's on there that then starts pulling all the fascia back, and that's how that's the origination of the issue. So whenever I start talking to people and they come in and they ask me these questions, I'm actually able to sit down and start trying to explain to them what could possibly going wrong, because again, I can't diagnose, but I give them a professional opinion saying, "Okay, this makes sense. From a kinesiology perspective, this makes sense as to the reason why you're feeling that." And as I start talking, I see my patients instantly starting to discard. They're letting their guard down because they're like, "Wait a minute, this person actually believes me. They believe there's some type of nerve pain happening." And what you just explained was the fact that this nerve pain is so intense that it causes you to salivate. That's that's a lot. That's a lot of nerve pain, and that's actually a peripheral nervous system situation, by the way. It's so much that your peripheral nervous system ramps up and it instantly thinks something's wrong. So that in itself is just incredible for you to have had to experience. So, this injury has been life-changing for you. And what I'm really interested in is to understanding when you realized you couldn't go back to teaching. Was there, like, a specific moment, or was it just more of a slow realization of, I've got this PTSD, I now have this nerve issue, every time I step, I feel like I'm gonna vomit? Like,
Mhm.
what happened?
Yeah, that was tough. So we I did the surgery in May, the following May. So I had a year of trying to kind of white knuckle through, try to find a doctor, and to really quickly go back to what you were just saying, when I had someone who understood me the way that you and listened the way that you listen to your clients and patients, I would start bawling in that doctor's office immediately, because being seen and heard in a situation like this is and being given any sort of hope,
Yeah,
of understanding, if nothing else, of understanding what the trigger is that's going to cause this pain so that I can prevent it, which is like what half of my life is built on now. Um, but to go back to what you were originally saying, or what you originally asked me, so I did the surgery, I did the full release, and it was just too long. I The nerve had been pinched for too long. A year is a really long time. Nerves can regenerate, but um, it didn't, and I did it in May with the thought that I would have the summer to recover because, of course, my dedication was to the teaching piece and
sure,
not clearly not enough to my own health. Although I did do a pretty good job. Like, you can tell I did a pretty good job, but I should have taken more time off, and
sure.
really, like, tried to recover better. Um, but here we are. Hindsight is 2020. Um, and I ended up with MRSA in my tarsal tunnel infection.
No.
So,
Okay.
I went back in, and as we were handling the MRSA situation and getting all of that cleared out, then I said to him, I was like, "Should I when will I regain any semblance of feeling?" And he said, "You don't have feeling?" He's like, "You didn't say anything." And I said, "I didn't think I was supposed to have it yet. I thought it would take a while." And he said, "No, it should have come back right away, like that next day. You should have had feeling. You should have had some sort of sensation." And he's like, "You have nothing? No change?" And I said, "No, no change." And he said, "Well, the only thing I gave you is 3 scars then."
My goodness. Wow, that makes me wanna cry there. So, hearing that, what went through your mind?
Oh, it's terrible. I was like and this was August, like, this was, like, 3 days before in-service week. So, like, the teacher part of me is like, "How am I what are we gonna do? I can't go no one's releasing me to go back now, and we have 3 days to find someone to cover for these kids." Which I realized probably shouldn't have been the first thought, but was. So then I said, "Okay, well, then what do we do? Because we have to manage this. I have to be able to use stairs as I age. I have to be able to walk on uneven sidewalks. I have to be able to have a
Sure.
life. I'm not going to say, "Okay, well, I tried and this is it." And so I said, "What do I do? Like, what's the best path forward?" So we came up with a plan for physical therapy to really work on that stability. It was, you're going to have to commit to lifelong, periodically going back to physical therapy, relearning how to walk. If you start dropping the outside of your foot again, you're going to have to really work on your balance and stability like every single day for the rest of your life. And you have to prioritize being in shape. You need that musculature to support everything so that you don't run into situations where you're just like you can't get in and out of a walk-in shower as you age. And these things are these are very real and something that you don't typically have to confront in your early 20s or
Yeah.
mid 20s.
Mhm.
And, but I was like, "Well, listen, like, I'm a proactive person," which I think is the reason that I am in as good of shape as I am right now, like, mentally, physically, everything. But I was like, "Okay, so what are the next steps? What we need to build a treatment plan that is an ongoing plan for the rest of my life. So tell me what we need to do, be honest with me, and let's just move this forward." And then I had to go through the entire process of not being able to go back to teaching, which was a huge I mean, that's a whole separate hours-long conversation,
Sure.
but having to retire as a 20-something is not an easy process and, was incredibly challenging and took years and years and years. But they really wanted to try to get me to go back to the classroom, and the workers' comp people did not wanna pay for, me to not go back to school. So they really like tried to push me. They tried to bully me. And so I was dealing with that while trying to deal with, looking down the barrel of the rest of my life. I might have to take a wheelchair through the airport. I'll never be able to drive a sedan. Anything that like where you have to sit back in the chair and push your foot forward. Because it's my right foot. There are a lot of things that I had to grapple with the fact that I might have to give up for the rest of my life when I'm like a quarter of the way in. Um, so it was a process, but I was, I'm a pick yourself up person and I really was like, okay, well as long as we have a plan, we will do the apps. I'm the person who does physical therapy outside of the fit like I will continue to do the physical therapy.
Amazing. You were the perfect client. That's fantastic. That's so great.
I'm the outlier.
I do wanna bring forward, though, on our conversation on Business Roundtable, you said something that really stuck with me and made me kinda smile and laugh. You said, "What else was I supposed to do?" Or, "What else was I going to do?" I think was the actual statement. "Just sit around and watch Netflix?" And you laughed when you said it, but I don't think it was a joke now. I'm now starting to understand that this was the moment where everything kinda turned for you. Can you talk to me about the decision to go full-time with photography? Was it now a choice of survival? I mean, I'm assuming that you had issues with the workers' comp, and now, like you were saying, staring down the barrel of the next, what, 60 of some odd years of your life, and you're concerned you're not even gonna be able to drive. So,
Yeah.
why I love the fact that you had something to fall back onto that was a comfort, which was photography. Can you tell me a little bit about what that choice was? Was it more of a survival or was it more of I need some type of joy in my life?
I think those things are not separate for me.
Okay.
Um, I n For my survival, I have to have joy,
I love that.
and
Okay.
to I also need to feel as though I'm contributing,
Mm,
um, to
preach.
my household. Yeah,
Feel it.
I can't, so when I wasn't doing photography yet or when I was trying to figure things out and I was just home, I was, like, trying to clean, and then I was activating the plantar fasciitis by, like, over cleaning the house and stuff, and I was like, "What are we doing here?" Like, I if I need to contribute, I gotta find a way to do it that I can physically do it, and so I sort of had to, like, map out a plan of how I could actually physically do photography with my limited amount of time that I could weight bear, without activating anything, and staying within, my what my doctors had recommended. I had to be very careful to stay within, if they said you could only stand for X amount of hours, I was gonna only weight bear for X amount of hours. And that goes for the whole day. That's like brushing your teeth taking a shower. That's not just like going to a photography session. So that brings in why I was trying to network because I knew I couldn't take a lot of these jobs that I was going to get, offered, and I was gonna need to refer them out to another photographer who could physically handle that type of work. Like, you don't wanna just not give someone somewhere to go. You want to be able to tell the person that wants to be your client, "I have another photographer that has similar vibes, has similar style, is similar pricing," whatever it is that they have been attracted to you for, and then give them that other person if you can't do it. So that was why I was networking and failing, but I really did need that joy. I needed to feel like I was contributing to my household. I wasn't married at the time. I did get married after I had surgery, in the same year. So we got engaged like halfway through this whole process.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
but yeah, so
That's
lots
crazy.
of different
Okay.
things with that too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I didn't wanna feel like I wasn't contributing. I didn't wanna be a stay-at-home wife. I didn't wanna be somebody that just, like, sits around and kinda gives up.
Mm. I mean, that's a real thing. I mean, that's I get it. Boy, do I get it. And the people that are in my life personally at the moment, they're like, "Brad understands." Like, they're gonna it's believe me, I understand that need and that desire. So, at this point, you're now going into photography. You've started this business and things are kind of trucking along. And like we talked about inside of our roundtable discussion, you said that you went to these networking meetings and you were just completely iced out every single time. And the reason why is because, again, photography is like a dog eat dog world. Massage therapy can be like that as well, which to me is absolutely wild because here's my thing: we're in healthcare, we're not in the business of one. So the whole idea is that we should be like helping each other succeed. And you just couldn't seem to find that common ground with these other photographers. So you said, "Okay, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done trying to network with people that don't want to network with me. I'm done trying to pass my referrals that I can't even handle right now over to you. So I'm just going to build my own thing." And that's where your business called District Bliss came forward. And I I think that a lot of people need to understand this story, so I'm just gonna break it down very quickly. So you created the community that you wish existed, and that's where this business came from. And now that I know what you went through before that, I hear that sentence completely differently now. Like when you threw that first event on Eventbrite, the one that sold out in 45 minutes, listeners, you heard that right, sold out in 45 minutes, where were you consciously building from the wound that everything has happened from, or did you just realize everything later? Like, what happened?
I would say you're correct that I was building from the wound because in a lot of ways, when you're being iced out of a circle and you're a person who is, like, so open and heart-centered and values forward, it's like someone thinks you're a different person, and so it did kind of send me back to when I felt like I was a different person inside my head half the time when I was going through the throes of, like, the really difficult parts of the PTSD. Um, and that felt like I was being treated like a different person than who I was, and so all of it just it sort of felt like I was experiencing the same thing over again, and I was using my very limited weight-bearing time
Mm,
each day to try to be in these circles that I wasn't being welcomed into because I was seen as someone I wasn't, and, like, that's a terrible feeling.
absolutely. So the feeling of being iced out by other photographers, it wasn't the first time for you, right? You already felt isolated. So, and that's like to a we're talking about a world that you felt like you belonged in already, right? You're like, "I've got that MFA in photography, like, I should be able to do this." So, how
Mm.
much of what you built now is a direct response to what you've been through?
Oh, I think everything.
Hmm. You have, like,
Every
that
part.
origin story, and
Mhm.
that's What an absolutely beautiful thing, and I just want everybody to hear for just a second. I'm gonna try to keep my soapbox minimal here. Everyone, those that are listening right now, Sarah has been through this emotional roller coaster, and she decided that the moment that the doctor said, "Well, I guess I just gave you 3 scars," that's where everything shifted for her, and she said, "Okay, I've gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life." She didn't give up. She kept pushing forward, she kept moving, and now she's here, even after she tried to start another business in photography. Now she has this whole other piece, and it's bringing these individuals in that are allowing them to be able to network with other people, to be able to get what it is she wasn't able to have in what, to me, seems like one of the darkest hours of her life. And she just said, "Everything that I built was built based off of my experience." And, sir, that's, I have to tell you, that is the reason why that your business is succeeding. Genuinely. I think it's because you have this mission, sorry, whew, vision and this mission that wow, I just merged those 2 words together. Maybe I should coin that,
I mean, trademark it.
right? So,
You
but
heard it here first.
but you had this mission and this vision to really give these people the support that you didn't have. And whenever you start building relationships first and networking second, is where businesses really start to grow and where they really start to skyrocket. So your heart-centered approach really, really feels just absolutely incredible to me. Now, whenever we spoke originally, you talked a little bit about like a little bit about imposter syndrome. Okay. And you said nobody has ever told you that you helped them grow as a host and you wanted to put that in your happiness pocket. And guys, what I'm referring to is after our first podcast, I told Sarah, I said, "You helped me grow as a host because you were so open and willing to speak." And it was just a really great experience. If you guys have not listened to that podcast, please go listen to it. It's on Business Insider Roundtable. It's an absolutely beautiful story. It's so great. But you said that you wanted to put it in your happiness pocket, and I love that. I kinda stole it a little bit too. So how does someone who has accomplished what you've accomplished still struggle with feeling like an imposter? And what does that teach us about the stories we tell ourselves?
Oh my gosh, I was just gonna say it's always the story we tell ourselves because you can always find something. I mean, I can go through just this morning and list 15 things that I should have done that I didn't do or that I could have done better that I didn't do, and it's like 11:30, in the morning. So, we can always bring in excuse me. We can
You're
always
fine.
bring in that imposter syndrome monster for ourselves, no matter how much success we've had, no matter how far we've gotten, where we're just sort of like, "How am I in this room?" Or, "I don't deserve to be in this room," or, What do I have to offer that's different from what other people have to offer?" Because there are a lot of other people out there who own networking organizations. There are tons of other networking organizations, but none of them are District Bliss. And I still have to remind myself that all the time.
Of course. You're right, and that's the thing, like, competition doesn't define you. If anything, it actually strengthens you. But it does redirect you in a lot of different directions sometimes, and the question isn't whether something terrible has happened in your life or you're having to maybe make that marketing shift. The question is whether you let it write the rest of the story or whether you pick up and you keep going. You pick up the pen, you pick up the camera, you pick up the computer, whatever it may be. And that's what pain to performance is all about. So, right now, someone is listening to this and they are in the middle of their own version of what you went through. Maybe it's not as dramatic, maybe it is, but they're stuck and they need to know what to do first. So, sir, let's get practical for a moment. If someone is listening right now and they've been sitting on an idea, a business, a pivot, a community they want to build, but they haven't started because they're afraid or because something happened that made them feel like they're not the person who gets to do that, what is the first thing they should do?
Release those should-haves. I should have done this. I should do that. I need this in place. I should have this in place before I start. I should do more research. I should have a website. All of these shoulds. I didn't have a website. I didn't even have a business name. I didn't even have a business. I had an Eventbrite page and I had a restaurant that didn't have a big happy hour gathering on Wednesdays. So I said, "Hey, can I bring people into the bar on Wednesday?" And, like, if you wanna give discounts, great. If not, great. People are gonna buy drinks. And, you know, that's all I needed to start. It Sometimes the things we think we need are the things that just are holding us back, or
Hmm.
the messages we're telling ourselves that are keeping us stuck.
That is you just put so much out there so quickly that even I'm trying to unpack this. So, this has been one of the most powerful conversations I've had on this show so far, Sarah, and I really genuinely mean that. I've been brought to tears today multiple times, but before I let you go, where can people find you and District Bliss and maybe that photography company?
So District Bliss, you can find us and all of our events at districtbliss.com, and we're at District Bliss Events on Instagram. And my photography company that has so far been like Voldemort, where we don't name it for some
It's
reason,
great. It's fantastic.
is Photos from the Harty, Harty. And we're at Photos from Heart, Harty on Instagram.
That's so good. Sarah, thank you so much again. Thank you for coming to share the story and for people to understand that even though you've been through something just absolutely life-changing, you've been able to change your life yourself and you took the control back. You didn't let the pain take over. You turned it into performance, and that's exactly what the show is about. Thank you so much again for joining.
Thank you for having me, Bradley. Honestly, thank you for holding space for this story for me and also for anyone else who's going through this, because it is so invisible and it feels so isolating. And you really, I think, made this feel very welcoming and really you made this feel like we can get through this together.
I appreciate that. Holding space is what I do, and it's what I love doing. And that's why listeners, whenever you're listening to this story, a share, a like, a comment, all those things allow me to be able to continue forward holding space for those other people. Sarah, thank you again so much. All right, before you go, I need you to hear this. Sarah was 25 years old with a master's degree in a career she loved when a student physically assaulted her and damaged a nerve that runs from her toes to her knee. She lost her classroom. She lost her identity. She lost the future she had planned. And then she built District Bliss, a community that has helped business owners book tens of thousands of dollars, a community that spans continents, a community that was born from the exact kind of pain that makes most people give up. So if you're listening right now and you're sitting in the rubble of something that happened to you, something that wasn't your fault, something that took something you loved, I need you to hear this. The worst thing that happened to you is not the end of your story. It might be the beginning of the best chapter you haven't written yet. Sarah didn't just survive. She built a table, and then she invited everyone else to sit down. If someone you love needs to hear this story, send them this episode. Because sometimes the most generous thing you can do for someone in pain is show them proof that it doesn't have to end there. I'll see you next time. This is Pain to Performance. Before we take off, one quick housekeeping thing. This podcast is for education and conversation only. I'm in no way a licensed therapist, doctor, wizard, And this show is not a substitute for care from a qualified professional. If something today made you think of someone you know, go ahead and do them a favor and send this episode their way. Pain is rarely a solo experience, and a good conversation is better shared. And if you're enjoying the show, make it official. Follow, subscribe, leave a review. It helps more than you realize and keeps this conversation going. Remember, the hardest part of pain to performance is learning how to listen. Now, I'll be here, same place, next play, and I can't wait to welcome you in.